Welcome back, guys. My friends, welcome back. And if you've not been here before, welcome. Welcome to my channel. My name is Keith. This is what really matters. What I do here is I dive into spiritual concepts. I dive into the truth of all things through self-reflection of my own, through life experiences of my own, through unearthing of truths and wisdom inside of myself through things that I experience and go through in this life, in this experience that I call my life right now. Um, but I'm kind of pivoting this channel towards something that throws in those things that I just mentioned. So all of those things that have a spiritual edge, a mysticism edge, but also involving things like music, because I love music, and involving things as movies, because I love horror movies in particular. Now, to combine all of these things, my likes and my interests and the things that I really love in this life, combined with the things that are already prevalent on this channel, like I've mentioned, it's a little bit of a harder thing to do, but I'm going to attempt to do it because I think no one's doing this. No one's in the communities of different genres of music. I don't think. I'm sure there are. It's to some extent, but I'm going to try to differentiate my way of doing it from others, and that is like through. I like all kinds of different genres of music, and I'll talk about different. It won't just be one certain set of genres of music. It'll be all the things that I enjoy and whatever talks to me in the moment, and how I can relate it to everyday life experiences and spirituality, right? I connect all of that. With horror movies, I think there's a way to connect those as well. It just might be a little bit tougher to get through those, but because horror movies are, it's a different beast. Music, it's more universal, and so I'm gonna attempt to do that. And today, as you've noticed from the title, there's another title attached to it that I've not attached to any of my videos before, and that is this new format that I'm displaying to you now, and that is called Reflections in the Rhythm, meaning reflections, looking inwards on oneself and expressing it through the medium of music, expressing it through the medium of music. And that's where the album that I'm talking about today is an album that came out just this past Friday, and that is in the title as well. It's from the band called Ghost, and the album title is Skeletá. Now, Ghost, if you're not familiar with Ghost, they're a rock band. Influences of rock bands from yesteryear, so of the 60s, 70s, 80s, that type of sound, you know. And when I say all those decades, I mean it. They throw influences from every one of those decades are culminated to make the band Ghost in their sound. Now there is something about Ghost that they have that make them who they are, and that comes a lot through the vocalist Tobias Forge, and he's the mastermind behind the band. And that originality, that uniqueness comes through with his voice and the way he perceives things and the way he experiences things and how he expresses them through the music. But there's also musical inflections and motifs that make Ghost who they are as well, combined with those things that they bring in from those other decades. But if you're not aware of them, that's Ghost in a nutshell. They're pretty huge right now. If you use the medium Spotify, you just go look. I think they're close to 9 million monthly listeners, and that's up there. And they're a great live band. If you ever see them live, which I highly recommend you do, I've seen them 3 times. I'm going to see them again this year in August, and I'm super excited for that. But their live show is more than just a live show. It's an experience. It's not just a concert. It's literally an experience that you have in this lifetime that you will never forget. Never forget. And if you connect with the music on a deeper level, which I think a lot of Ghost fans do, they have a great fan base. They have some toxicity in the fan base too, but what fan base is absent of toxicity altogether, right? But for the most part, they come together for the love of this band and for the love of what Ghost means and how they feel and experience Ghost's music. It really touches you at a deep, resonant place. And that's why I love the band. And that's why I wanted to talk about this album, Skeletá, because this, of all the albums that the band Ghost has released, is the most introspective in nature. And it's Tobias Forge basically expressing how he experiences life and all the trials and tribulations and things that we experience living this life and things that we go through and how we deal with them, how we get past them, how we move forward with them. And I think that's super intriguing, and it's self-reflective. And so while that isn't the full truth, that is a stepping stone to the truth. If you're a seeker, you know that that's part of the journey. And so Tobias Forge to me is a seeker, comes through in all his work, specifically here with Skeletá, and I will let you know why. So without further ado, let's get a little bit into it. I won't be getting into every single song, because while I think those threads of introspection are laced throughout every song in one way or another, not all of them are centered around that necessarily. So they have other songs that are just more so the brand of Ghost and their image, and because they do have this image about them that if you ever seen them, look up Ghost and look up how they look. They change per album cycle. They get new. There's a whole lore involved with it. That's not necessarily the important part in why I'm talking about this in this video. That's not the important thing, but that is an aspect of Ghost. And so if you've not heard of Ghost and you wonder and you look at them, you realize, well, wait, there's a lot of stuff going on beyond the music, and there is. Um, but a thing that they've always had is there's a certain type of vibe. There's a certain aesthetic that they go for within their music. If it's not talking about reflection, self-reflection, if it's not talking about real life stuff, usually it is. It's just on the surface level, they look like they're Satanists. They look like they don't, they look like they're making fun out of religion and God and stuff like that. And they are making fun of the things in religion that are made to be fun of. Well, let's be honest here. Any organized religion, you know that there's things that they believe and that they tout as truth that's not truth. And so they kind of have this satirical edge to them, and that comes forth in the songwriting too and stuff. So back to what I said, a lot of this stuff is more in the forefront of introspection and looking in the mirror basically and seeing what's going on inside of us and how it's affecting our lives and our reality and how we can move past them and how we can move alongside them, right? But some songs are more so on the tongue-in-cheek, campy aspect, which is also a part of Ghost. They're very multi-layered, multifaceted, and that's another reason why I love them as a band. So let's get into it. The first track I wanted to talk about was Guiding Lights, and this is the fourth track on the album. According to Tobias Forge, who's the mastermind behind the band and the lead singer, Guiding Lights is about having a friend going down a path that you know is not serving them and that is leading them to a demise of sorts, or it's leading them to a dark place, and yet you can't butt in. You can't get in that and let them know, hey, you're going down the wrong path, even though you know it, because for the sake of, you might not even be friends afterwards after you've come clean about how you feel about how they're going in their life, which is very interesting. And how that correlates to the spiritual journey, it can, but that's more so in the dynamic of a relationship, right? With a good friend, and you don't know how to intervene in what they're doing. But it's also through this, I think you can learn to just, at the end of the day, we have to just mind our business and love them, even though we know they're not making the best decisions for themselves, or the people around them. We can understand that. But where it gets me on this song, Guiding Lights, it's a beautiful ballad type of track. It's very slow, but it's bombastic and it's epic. And it pulls at your heartstrings with the melodies they use, and that's what Ghost does a lot too, which is what I love about them as well. But this one, I just connect with it more on a musical aspect. The relationship I have with this song is more on a musical thing and how it makes me feel. But you could tell it's coming from a deep place within him, and the lyrics are very potent. Like the lyrics are very potent also. Um, but this one, I just the minute I heard it, I had tears. Because that's what I love about Ghost too is the melodies they. It's all coming from a deep place within that wants to be expressed, and he knows how to make these melodies pull in your heartstrings. And they also pull in your heartstrings because they're coming from a deep place within him. So it's like him passing that emotional process of this that he made that he went through while writing this song, put it into music form, and now it's being transferred to you in your experience, in your overall soul's journey. But since we're all one, we connect, we feel that. If it's coming from a real place of the heart and a real place of wanting to understand someone better or wanting to just coming from a real place. When it's coming from a real place, you cannot deny energy, and the energy is absolutely felt in the song, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And it's almost a transcendence the way you feel when you listen to the song. At least that's how my experience was with it. It's just so overpowering with the melodies and then the depth of what he's talking about together. I respect it a lot. So this one's not so much a self-reflection type of thing through this song, although it is in a way, but it's involving another person and how they feel toward this other person, but through the lens of love, because they do love this person. They just don't know how to intervene with things that they're doing that are not the right way. It's not the path, And how do you go about those things? Well, many ways, but that's all for Guiding Lights. That's all I'm going to touch on that one, just because it just doesn't touch more so on the singular aspect of self. It's more so through the image and lens of someone else in your life, which is still very important. So the next song follows that I want to talk about follows this song, follows Guiding Lights, and that's De Profundis Borealis. Now, De Profundis, you'll know, is a letter, if you might know, is a letter that was written by Oscar Wilde when he was in prison. I think he was in prison, but he was writing a letter to his loved ones or his loved one. Forgive me, I don't know the exact details of it, but he was writing a letter, and it was basically him just doing a lot of introspection of the suffering that he was feeling and how he was dealing with all these feelings of suffering and while he was in prison, and he was just writing it out to his loved one, his wife, whatever. So the song again is about suffering. Now I think we can all relate on suffering because suffering is a universal thing for this human species. We all suffer to some extent. Um, Hopefully, the idea is the further we go on the path of life and we understand more about ourselves, and the more we're introspective and the more we can separate ourselves from the suffering, which is what this song kind of talks about actually, the more free we are. There's a line in the song, and it says, I won't say verbatim, but there's something about how you feel the suffering, but when the morning comes, it's when you can defrost. It's the morning. It thaws the ice of the heart that you've accumulated over time from the suffering that you can't let go. Because we all suffer, and we let that suffering overtake us for way longer than it should, right? And I love that this song's talking about that too, because it's what it's saying is this ice, this frigidity that we have built inside of us from the suffering, from the pain that we feel, which is natural and it's a part of the human experience. But once we give love to the suffering, once we can channel this suffering out through love and in a healthy way, and understand that it's just a part of the process, but it's only here for a limited time. It's not always here. It comes and goes, ebbs and flows like the universe does. Good comes, bad comes, good comes, bad comes. But we don't, the key is not to key in on the suffering so much that you prolong the experience of suffering, right? And so what he's saying in the song is it's okay to let these emotions out. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel instead of keeping it in you, because you keep it in you, you keep all this suffering in you like a frozen image in time of the experience or whatever it was that caused you this suffering, and you cannot let it go because you do not know how to process these emotions that would let it go. And so this is a very, I love this song, and I love that he chose to talk about suffering in such a light. Um, and I love that it ties back to Oscar Wilde, and that's also tied back to Psalm 130 in Scripture that talks about the same thing, suffering, and how, Lord, can you hear my plea? Um, we have the answer within us, right? You go on the journey, you go on this self-reflective journey, you realize we don't have to hold on to the suffering anymore. We process through the emotions, but we feel it. The biggest important thing is to feel the emotions. And love that Tobias Forge touched on that in the song. It's a very key, pivotal song when you think about it in that way, because suffering, again, is universal. So is the experience of living a life. We all have our different reality. We live in our own bubbles, sure, but at the end of the day, we're human beings. We all suffer. We all can get past suffering, right? So, De Profundis Borealis, beautiful track. Next track, my favorite track on the album, and one of, I think of much importance, and it's called Cenotaph. And if you don't know what a cenotaph is a cenotaph is basically a monument, this big grand monument that is usually in accordance with someone who has passed, or let's say you can't find the body of someone who passed, so they built this monument up that is empty, doesn't actually hold a body in it, but it's supposed to be a structure that represents the person that you can't find that has died and passed on. It's kind of in memory of them, but it's empty. It's an empty husk of a thing, right? So when people go to these cenotaphs and pray and offer relief and stuff like that, but what he's saying is that at the end of the day, a cenotaph is indeed, it's empty. There's the remnants of the person that you think this is here for. It's not in this man-made structure, aka a cenotaph. But where we can keep these people that have passed in our lives, family members, friends, whatever, because that's another experience that is universal, and that is death, which is very important. And it goes as always talked about death and life, but it's more so amped up on this. It's more so honed in on this album. And what he's saying is we don't have to visit a cenotaph, and I'll take it even further. We don't have to go to, because I think a graveyard is the same type of idea as a cenotaph, because there's these monuments that are built up and you pay a lot of money for them for a dead body to sit in, and it be a kind of memorial of the person you knew. But when you know about the decaying process, the person who was in the grave, in the memorial, their body will eventually turn to dust again. Everything will decay and turn to dust, and there will be no resemblance of the person you knew. But even if you go to a funeral, you see the dead body in the coffin. Clearly, it's just the husk of a person there. The husk is a shell. It's like a vehicle, right? The flesh suit. The thing that you loved about this person, the thing that you remember and you will always remember about this person, the thing that you have memories on and you think that you can think fondly back on, and that's what this song is about, Cenotaph, by the way, which I'm going to touch on. I'm going to get to it. But the idea is the soul, the spirit, the light, the love that you remember, that you connect to from that person is no longer in the body that is in the grave, in the memorial, and it's not in the cenotaph that has been built up to give you some sort of relief and some sort of remembrance that you can visit of a loved one. When in actuality, they exist still, even after death. And this channel I talk about, we don't never, death is a construct. We never die. The body dies, right? So, but the thing that you remember, the energy that cannot be created nor destroyed, always exists. It just is converted into energy again, into something else, another body, a plant, anything, a nature, anything, but it's still alive somewhere in this realm, somewhere in this existence, somewhere, that energy that you knew as your loved one, your friend, your family is still exists. And you can touch base with that through memory, through experiences. If you can look in your mind right now and I ask you, think about someone who's passed, and can you see them in your mind's eye, in your head, when you close your eyes, you can keep them open, whatever, but can you see the image of that person like you remember them when they were here, walking around alive in this flesh body? Because I guarantee you can, and you have, and you do always. And now by doing that, what Tobias Forge is saying is how we keep them alive. It's through our memories. We keep them in our heart by how we remember them when they were alive, all the good memories you had with them. Instead of mourning the death of them, they never die. They always stay here with you. And the more we can keep them in our minds, in our mind's eyes, in our hearts, we keep them alive in our experience. That means they never actually died. So when you see them in your mind's eye and you feel the emotions and you feel the great upheaval of emotions that you feel when you think back of something that you did with this person, you realize, well, guess what? That's how they stay alive. It's through you. It's through you, through me, through all of us. That's how, because death is just a door to another thing, right? It's just another door. It's just a door to another thing. But in this human experience, it's like it can be feeling like the end. It's so finite, but it's not. It's not. And we can keep until we ourselves or leave this realm, leave this body, leave this vessel. We can reunite with them on another form, in another form of somewhere else, right? But now, while we're here and they're not here, there's an empowerment in knowing that we can keep them alive within ourselves. And the way he explains this through the lyrics is very potent and very empowering and very emotional in a great way. I know every time I hear this song and I know the lyrics and I'm just thinking about someone who I know that has passed. I had a grandpa that passed like a little over 2 years ago, and I've had a lot of things you can't experience happen around me during that process, and I still do, and it has to do with cardinals. Maybe I'll get into that in another video. Maybe I have touched on it in another video if you've seen any of my other videos. But the point is, I can see my grandfather in my mind's eye, how I'll remember him and all the great memories. And by me doing that, I'm keeping him alive in my heart, and therefore he's never dead. He's never died. Because if you could see it in your mind's eye, who says that's not who says that's not real? Right? This channel, what really matters is built upon these types of things, these types of concepts of, if it's coming from our experience of consciousness, all we have is consciousness. All there is consciousness. So in my own consciousness, if I see something so strongly in my mind's eye, why is that not real? Just because it's not here in physical form, right? But the more we experience, the more we know, the more we realize that the physical form is just a small slither of this experience, and that we only see so much of available light to us. There's so much things that we cannot even see of the entire experience that is the universe. We're in such a limited we're very limited in what we can experience, and a lot of it is we can't see it. So to say that when we conjure up these images of the loved ones that we miss and that we love dearly and that we wish were still here, they are still here. They're just within us. It's always within us. And so if this experience of a human life, everything that's going on outside of us, is just an experience of what's going on within us. Without our experience, without our consciousness, the way we perceiving things right now, the way I'm perceiving this camera, my surroundings, it's all coming from within me. If my consciousness blanks out, this doesn't matter anymore. At least in my consciousness, and that's all we have is our own consciousness. And so this is real. And so if it's happening in here and I see it and I feel it, it's also real there too. And it doesn't mean it's not real. So what Tobias Forge is saying is very, very introspective and very forward moving in how we should look at things, especially death, because death is a big topic here while we're on Earth. And the more we can question death question what happens to the thing after the body dies, what happens to that energy, that source, that soul, that spirit that we love so much of the other person that we miss dearly, we realize that never goes anywhere. It helps you deal with death even more because we never die. We never die. It's just an illusion, right? It goes on and keeps going on, and we never lose our loved ones. And that's a beautiful message. That's so beautiful. And apparently he's probably lost someone. I think he lost a brother, Tobias Forge, I'm saying. So this message is universal and very potent. And it's such a strong, it's so strong. I love it so much. So yeah, that's Cenotaph, my favorite song on the album for sure. The next one I wanted to talk about was, where am I at? Let's see. Oh yeah, it's the last one I want to talk about, and that was a song called Excelsis, and that's the very final track on the album. Um, Very pretty track, a very somber track at times, very positive too. Somber and positive. They kind of know how to put those two things together and make it work. Like they have this somber edge, but there's also this uplifting, positive edge of everything is hopeful, everything is going to be all right. And it's even more so felt on this album. But Excelsis is basically talking about, again, death, of course, it's inevitable, but also not focusing so much on death and realizing that you indeed are still alive in this iteration at least, right? We talked about Cenotaph and how we never die, and I don't know if Tobias has come to this conclusion or not, but I understand not wanting to focus on death so much that you forget to live, because what he even explained was that he loves to think about death, but sometimes it scares him or it causes so much within him to just be focused more on death and the unknown nature of death. Although to be play devil's advocate here, Eastern philosophies and religions have been touching on the idea of death and what death is and how to embrace death and how to implement death in our every single day of living in this human experience in a way to empower yourself, knowing that it's not the end, but also knowing that if indeed that's not the end, then why not be ready for what happens after this? Because there is an after, you know. How that looks for every single soul and spirit is different, obviously, and that depends on things that is out of my control and out of my knowing. I can't know this, me personally. But these people have really engaged in the idea of death so much, but it was through the empowering, it was through the putting death under the lens so much, knowing that it's not, it's just another pathway to another existence or another form of experiencing, right? It never ends, it can't end, can't be created, can't be destroyed, so it just keeps going on. It's like an endless cycle, and we talk about reincarnation and stuff like that. So I get what he's saying though, Tobias, about in Excelsis, about death always around the corner. Remember it, and that is a very important message. Remember that it is, because that is the truth. But let me say this: the more we accept that death is just there, it's always there. You cannot fully experience and appreciate life without fully understanding and appreciating death, because they are one of the same pole and polarity. One's here, but it's existing on the same pole. You can't have life without death. You can't have death without life. And so you have to, don't get caught up in death if it makes you feel bad, right? But if it makes you feel bad and it makes you question things and it makes you feel any type of way, I think we should be willing to examine those feelings, because through that is where you'll be free and you'll get a better understanding that, why do I feel scared of death? Can I get to a place within myself where I understand death is only a natural part of this life? It's guaranteed. It's one of the few things that is guaranteed in this life, and that is death, right? Part of that same pole and polarity. So when we can accept death from that lens, that it's gonna happen regardless. We don't cling to it, but we appreciate life more in the understanding and appreciation of death. Does that make sense? Since you know death is always around the corner, it can happen to us at any moment. It can happen now, it can happen tomorrow, it can happen in the next second. No matter who you are, we don't know when it's coming, but we know that it is coming. The experience of death, right? It's not the end, but we know that it is coming. The death of this human experience, that we know it now in this iteration. And so when you know it's around the corner, you always remember that, but you remember it in a way that empowers the living process, because you know that if it is true, and it is, that I could die in this next moment, let me live my life to the fullest. And so Tobias is hitting a little bit on that in Excelsis, more so from his angle of like, not so much, death is there. He's accepting it. What I heard him in interviews is, I don't know if he's accepted it fully to where he knows that it's not the actual end. Although it is the end of Tobias Forge, right? It's the end of that person, that singular existence and identity, should I say. And so, but the point is, and the most important thing is that he's questioned these things. And as a society, as a humanity, as beings, we have to question these things, because it gives us more depth as people, and it gives us more reason to live. It makes you really appreciate and express gratitude for being alive right now. The cover of Skeletá, the Ghost album that I'm talking about, I'm gonna put it in. You're gonna see it a few times within the video. You probably see it in the thumbnail. You're probably gonna see it here too. I'll show it to you. But if you look good at it, and you really look at it good, there's a mirroring effect going on. And there's even some promo images of Tobias Forge as Papa 5 Perpetua, which is his identity in this iteration of Ghost, in this album through Skeletá. As I told you before, they go through different iterations per album, and this one is Papa 5. He's the fifth one. Papa Emeritus 5 Perpetua is his name attached to that. The promotional pictures that were put out before the album dropped is him in his regalia, in his get up, his Pope outfit. Yes, it's the Pope outfit. Yes. And the Pope died a few days before this album come out, which is kind of wild. So I just want to point that out, but I digress. Through this promotional image, it's him at a table, but through the table you see the table and you see his reflection very clear. Again, a mirroring effect. And when you look at the album art, there's a mirroring effect going on there. And so it's so clear to me through the image of the album art, done by someone who I can't pronounce his name, but I will link his name and I'll put it in the description for you. A masterful artist, and he's done a lot of Ghost's album arts and the inserts of the booklets and all that kind of stuff. Very detail oriented. And through this, the mirroring effect, through the promotional images and the album artwork, and even through the lyricism, there's a lot of mirroring of, let me look in the mirror back at myself. Is what we all should do, is look at ourselves. Turn your consciousness inward to yourself. Instead of blaming things outside of ourselves, it's all happening within. Everything we feel, everything we experience, good, the bad, the neutral, it's all coming from within us. And when we turn and look at ourselves and accept all these things, the grief, the suffering, all the things that Tobias talked about within the themes of the entire album, when we think about all of these things, we accept it, and we learn to live from a more freeing place, a more accepting place of who we are. And as a band as big as Ghost, now bands and artists have been doing this for a long time, right? Putting out potent messages within the music, but I don't know if everyone gets to really grasp onto these things, because you can only know something as deep as you know yourself. But I'm letting you know is that, and so is he, so is Ghost, and so is, Tobias Forge. Through the message is like, hey, we're all experiencing this together. There's better ways to understand ourselves. There's better ways to move about in this existence that are more of a positive note, that are more on a joyous note, and more on a more fulfilling note. But it comes from looking at one another No, it comes from looking at ourselves, right? Not one another in judgment, but looking at one another as we're all the same. But looking in the mirror and realizing that are the ways that we're moving in the earth, is it beneficial for others? Is it beneficial to us first, but then is it beneficial for everyone else? And so when we can learn to accept ourselves and learn to realize that this is part of it, and that if we want to see change, we have to be the change first. Let's stop waiting for everyone else to change. Let's all come together in peace, though. The message is peace. And I strongly feel that with this album, uplifting peace and this pureness to the message, and even the pureness in the melodies and the way the songs are structured and how how they resonate within you deeply. That's how we get to a place in this experience where we realize who we really are, and that is one, unity, right? Unity. And when the world around us is all so full of division, and they've talked about division and they still do, but especially with the last album, Impera, and how the state of the world is, when we stop focusing on the outside circumstance of that stuff, we still see it for what it is, but we realize we can't control every single thing. So let's control the inner dialogue. Let's control the inner feelings within us. And when we do that and we focus on that and we love ourselves, that only extends outward. So, and then you get it mirrored back again, back to the mirroring principles. I love the idea of mirroring. You turn around in the mirror, look at yourself in the mirror, accept yourself in the mirror, do the inner work, then the outer world mirrors back to you your inner state. As I've been saying on past videos before, it's all a part of that one truth. And Tobias Forge, whether he knows it or not, he's hitting on that. And for him to hit on such a deep thing, I just hope the people that are listening are really grasping what he's putting out and the importance of it all, and how we can implement. Not only can we enjoy it as an album and all that kind of stuff, and him coming forth and being very personal, but how we can implement it with our own journeys, because we're all one. It's all unity consciousness. We're all the same here. There's a resemblance of me liking my own things and experiencing things the way I do, and sure, that's fine. We have our own flavor because we're our own consciousness, but we're also part of a one consciousness that is everyone. It's everybody. It's all inclusive. We're all here living the same experience. We're all human beings, should I say. And Skeletá is a reflection, if you will, of that. And I love this album so much, and it's bringing me so much joy, and it's mirroring back to me all the self-work that I've been doing. And this is a message and an experience that everyone should have this. Everyone should feel this and feel the importance of it. This is an important album in human history, should I say, because it's talking about things again that are universal, that are going to move us forward if we can implement and we can understand and we can grasp what he's talking about here. It's not about divisive things. It's not about pushing people away from you. It's not about cursing and belittling someone because of their beliefs and how they look at the world, but coming together on the things that we all have in common. And I get choked up with all this stuff because it's coming from a place of love, and this album is coming from a place of love, and love is the only thing that matters. The more you learn about yourself, the more you introspect in your own self, it's just love. It's getting back to the love. And knowing that all the things that we feel that are negative in nature that we feel, it's all false. But we have to show compassion and love to those things about ourselves for us to come back to a sense of this is it. Who we are is divine. And I think once we start realizing that about ourselves, then we can mirror it and transfer it to everyone we come into contact with. Therefore, we make a better place to live while we're here. And that's important. And so Tobias Forge, bless you, sir. Ghost, the band Ghost, the Ghouls and Ghoulettes, which is his band members. They go by those names, Ghouls and Ghoulettes. Bless you all for making an incredible musical album. The musicality on this album and the song structures is probably the best Ghost has ever sound. The production is magnificent. But the depths of how far it goes to explain things about this human experience and how we can implement those ourselves through love. And if you've ever been to one of their rituals, their shows, it's love. It's his love for us being transferred back to us through him. And it's a great album, and it's an album that I think everyone should listen to. Maybe you're not a fan of this type of rock music, but just give it a shot. Just give it a shot. And even if you're not, I hope you find these, or have found, or will find these lessons on your own time in your own experience. I intend that you will. But for someone who's maybe open to this type of music, it can help us in so many ways. You know, be intrigued by the way you feel when you feel stuff from albums that you listen to that invoke something deep within you, as it does. I feel like this album does and has, from the response I've been seeing from fans and friends and all that kind of stuff. Question why it makes you feel a certain way is because the universality of the message that he's being portrayed here. It's universal. It works for him. It works for us. It works for the entire population, entire human species. And it's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a decision to focus on love, empowerment, and our overall journey while we're here. And it's so special, and I love it so much. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this segment, this new format of video. Now, not every video is going to be like this, of course, but I do want to trickle some of this type of stuff in because, again, music is very important to me. And if I can connect it to the human experience and the spiritual experience, then by all means, I will try my best to do that. So this is the first, first, what's the word? This is the first foray into reflections in the rhythm. I hope you like that title. I thought it was pretty cool. So, again, thank you for watching, guys. Enjoy the album, Skeletá. Check it out if you're new to the band. If you haven't heard of Ghost, check them out. They're a great band. And yeah, until next time, guys, have a great day, have a great week, have a great existence if you never see me again. And with love and peace, have a great one. Love you all.